This video is not to glorify violence, mass murder, or anything like that. It is to clear up misconceptions and myth-conceptions or inceptions by people who wish to change history because they don't like what effect it might have on, I guess, their property values or whatever. I think it's very petty for somebody to modify history so that it doesn't make them look bad or something else. Stephen Craig Paddock fired 1,057 rounds, that's the number of empty casings found in the building, by the way, in 11 minutes from 18 rifles, 13 of them having bump stocks. He injured 800, killed 60, and left 5,280 live rounds unfired in the building. That's approximate because they weighed them because there were so many, counting them was not practical. And yes, they did do ballistics on the bullets recovered or fragments or full bullets. And they did do ballistics on the casings. They're required to. The FBI took on part of the work, so did the police department. Several departments did this because it was so many freaking cartridges. Ones that weren't fired were also checked to see if they'd been chambered at any time. Also, if they'd been in a magazine. AR-15 rifle magazines were loaded with hollow point and polymer-tipped hollow point ammunition. What that means is both of them are hollow points, but the polymer-tipped or ballistic tip cartridges have a colored tip on them so that it has better aerodynamics and will hit what you're aiming at rather than maybe going off track. Now, something should be noted here, and I never really paid attention to it, but many hollow point bullets sold before 2017 and currently don't just have a hollow point, they have a very small hollow point. That's so that they act like a ballistic tip. It's a compromise bullet for long-range shooting, high-accuracy shooting, and is by default made by a lot of companies because when they form it, it's cheaper. I didn't really note that, but it was mentioned in a couple of videos I saw recently, and it just finally clicked in my head. Some of the bullets on impact, if they hit anything hard, or don't go deep enough to expand, or are not moving fast enough, that hollow point will close up and look like a full metal jacket. You have to look at them by cutting them lengthwise to see if there's a hollow point. That's for the AR-15, 223, and 5.56 rifles. 5.56 is the designation for the NATO rounds. They're usually 55 grain jacketed bullets, and the 223 can be all sorts of. The minimum speed for them to expand, depending on diameter of that opening, hint, hint, is 3,000 feet per second down to 2,000 feet per second. It depends on the cartridge. At range, firing them out of the muzzle, one speed. Impact 600 yards downrange, very different. That's why the ballistic tips become important at longer ranges. And again, that's why you want to make it cheaper by making a really small hollow point that would only expand at short range. AR-10, 308, otherwise known as 7.62 rifle magazines, were also found with the rifles. The bolt-action rifles were loaded with tracers, frangible incendiary, and armor-piercing, or other. There was such a huge collection of bullets that the police department kind of generalized things. Some of these could have been full metal jackets mixed in. Stephen Paddock might have fired full metal jackets first. I don't know. Many of the bullets that hit fragmented to where they're not really identifiable after a certain point. Some of them look pristine. Again, a bullet that's going just slow enough, especially if it runs into a piece of bone and fractures someone's leg, very likely wouldn't look like a hollow point. It would look like a full metal jacket. Again, it didn't dawn on me. I mean, I've looked at these cartridges and bullets repeatedly, but it didn't dawn on me. Maybe Stephen Paddock had the pseudo-ballistic tips that don't have any filler material and have a hollow point that's really tiny. They're very common when you look at videos from 2015, 16, and 17. There is no limit on the quantity or quality of ammunition you can purchase, even in California, if you do it right. And traceability is either non-existent or very, very strongly done. If you have passed a background check, many places won't even bother noting it because you've already passed a background check. Some places it's optional. Some places are considered Second Amendment strongholds and they just refuse to obey the rules. So collecting what looks like over 6,000 rounds of ammunition, yeah, that's not unexpected. People buy it when it's cheap. That's why. They hoard it. They just go from one Walmart after another and buy one box below or one round below or one box below the limit where it would have to be noted as being a suspicious purchase. Mostly because they just don't want to fill out the paperwork to make it unsuspicious. Nevada private gun sales background checks are supposed to be done in Nevada in cities. Again, some places are refusing to do it out of protest. Police may or may not confiscate firearms from those who are seen as the threat using red flag laws. In 2017, this may or may not have been in place, and again, it wouldn't count if the records weren't kept. Stephen Paddock had a hunting license from Alaska. Therefore, he had to have passed a background check. As of the time of the shooting, up until the point he broke a window or fired a gun, and even breaking the window might not have qualified, he had not committed a felony of any kind and would not be on a background check list of any kind, or red flagged. If he had simply not pulled the trigger at all, or somebody plugged him mercifully, he would have, at that point, died without any criminal record or have committed a crime. If only the gun blew up in his face, like people think it does. None of the firearms were treated as assault rifles or assault weapons. Both expressions are not really legal terms, really, and I hate that they're used a lot. But none of them had any of those designations. These were simply single shot per trigger pull, semi-automatic or auto-reloading firearms. You pull the trigger and then it won't let you fire it again until you release it, so you have to fire it again that way. None of them were outfitted with any special treatments except a bump stock. Gun stores were required only to report multiple gun purchases if they were handguns, not long guns, not shotguns. And any kind of totaling of his purchases to get a red flag on making an arsenal weren't in place legally and weren't brought up. There was also no limit on how often he could buy a firearm. He owned 40 extra firearm components, rifle cases, the packaging, bipods, bump stocks, scopes, and sights that don't have to include any serial numbers or be tracked or regulated back then, but the police department chose to say every single item they found was a firearm in news reports, calling it an arsenal. He really had a collection of 50 handguns, rifles, and shotguns. 17 were gained over a period of 20 years, less than one a year. But in the last year before the attack, he bought 33 firearms, which was one every 11 days approximately. So for 20-odd years, he did something that wouldn't be able to show up on a background check. And in the last year, he did something that's just barely at the 10-day limit, not able to show up on a background check either. He spent a lot of money on it. Where did he get his money from? He used to do real estate, and then he claimed to do poker or other activities that were flamboyant. He talked himself up a lot, but really he spent most of his life just being a real estate broker, a real estate guy who bought and sold houses and just stuffed the money into bank accounts. He had a really boring tax record, by the way, apparently. A lady named Samantha Arjune, who died May 26, 2020, as a result, most likely or exclusively from the injury she got of a bullet in her leg. By October 1st of 2018, the bullet in her leg, one of the bullets, or the bullet that broke her leg and shattered it, had come out. It looked exactly like a full metal jacket, boat tail, ballistic tip, or hollow point, 223556, 55 grain bullet. It's the most generic on the planet. It's what you buy in bulk at Walmart. And again, Stephen Paddock could have fired full metal jackets first on purpose because they go through things faster. Because if you hit a target, it can go through that target and hit another target. He might have thought that way. He might have been trying to shoot equipment to keep people from leaving the area or create chaos by having bullets deliberately ricochet off of things because he wasn't really able to aim. We don't know what was going through his head at that time, except for the last thing that was fired that night. We know what that was. A video showing at the 65-second mark her holding the bullet between her fingers and another one with it laying flat looks exactly like a full metal jacket. But again, it could have been a hollow point that had a tiny point on it that hit nose first, went into the tissue, wasn't going fast enough to actually expand in this tiny amount of flesh, hit the bone and shattered it, and it looks slightly flattened out. Stephen Craig Paddock's airplane and flight capabilities. He became a single-engine plane certified pilot, instruments, and landing in 2003. 2008 was his last medical exam concerning the FAA. It said he was third class, medical classification, required reading glasses for reading things while he was flying, but he could take off his glasses and fly just fine. This expired in 2013 and is not really relevant by the time the shooting happened. He owned 2 planes. 2006 and 2007 are the timings they were listed at one point, and some of those records are not available anymore because they're just not available anymore. I'm trying to find them, I can't. The information about some of this was only in YouTube videos that YouTube took down, or in pages that were on websites that disappeared because the websites failed because .com. Everybody said that he got tired of flying or it became a hassle for him and didn't like doing it. He sold the planes to try to get money out, and he used that money to go on cruises as a retiree. No military or government bought or had anything to do with any of the planes. After several owners and a few years later, one of them may or may not have been bought by a company that's slightly associated with the government. Trying to make this some sort of government tie-in so you can wink, wink, nudge, nudge some conspiracy theory doesn't work when none of that panned out. A 2018, February 19th, Freedom of Information Act request to the FAA about Stephen Paddock was delayed because in order to release the files, the FAA wanted a signed statement from the airman, Stephen Paddock, but he was dead already. They needed a death certificate that was an authentic one, mostly because they wanted to make it to where only officials from a city or federal government could request this information after you're dead. It's in their interest to keep people from accessing information that says this will be kept private, even though the stuff's publicly posted most of the time. They sent in the death certificate, and they were answered by May 9th of 2018. This was an 80-day delay due to bureaucracy, not a cover-up. There was no attempt to prevent people from finding out Stephen Paddock had planes or had flown, or that the planes eventually ended up with a contractor that's somewhat associated with the U.S. government or not. Now, that last part I'm going to say one more time. I can't confirm or deny it because the tapes have been erased. No, it's because the information is not available because everybody who brought this up took it down. Even Snopes took a bunch of this stuff down. Once a web page about a conspiracy theory isn't getting visited anymore, a lot of people take them down because they become a liability, especially when YouTube changes their policies or Reddit did. Reddit had a lot of this. It was taken down because Reddit had a purge. All of them did. Facebook used to be a source. I can't find my archives of it because even looking it up is gone. And Google has done a very good job purging stuff. They've gotten very into this because they don't want people looking up previous shootings or murderers because they think it's aggrandizing them. Again, I'm not promoting what Stephen Paddock did. I'm dispelling bullshit lies that are used to promote him as a good person or exonerate him. Please stop taking down my videos with the data that people are looking up so I don't have to make any more videos. There's a video taken in April of 2016 of the U.S. Army recruitment semi-tractor trailer, Army Interactive, in Las Vegas. Because that also happened during the shooting, there was a Army recruitment semi-tractor trailer there. They do that at every event, and I said that before. A person said, I haven't ever seen that. I'm very familiar with the military. Except this is what they used that day, and I can find dozens of other examples, but I'll include one below. Now I'm going to get to the last part. On a previous video, I was asked about some mysterious ex-cop, but it was actually Aaron Salter. He did AWS, Hydrogen Technologies, LLC, and had a patent for method and system for using the byproducts of electrolysis. This was in 2015, not a recent patent attempt, and he left his subject and his patent fallow for 7 years or something. He wasn't making any progress. It was never a water-powered car design, and the meme about that, again, is a lie. No, he wasn't the main target when an entire building full of people were fired upon or potentially in danger. That's not how it works. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. And this is a response to a bunch of questions on many, many subjects, mostly about Las Vegas. Good day.